Well, thanks for being here and making us watch Species. I am glad I watched it. You know, it's part of our culture and our history. It's important that we pass that on.
We have a biological imperative to pass on Species.
The knowledge of Species. And that's why we have to make it into a cinematic universe. I think we can just go down the whole kind of taxonomy list and just kind of work our way backwards from the titles.
I can't wait to make a enormous billion-dollar film franchise called Phylum.
Phylum? Yeah.
Yeah. That's a poster. That's a t-shirt. That's a fucking toy line right there.
In 2022, two writers came together to finish what Universal Studios couldn't. A cinematic universe of monster movies called the Dark Universe. After 3 years and 30 scripts, their project was finally completed. Now, in 2025, they're back to attempt what's never been done before, a completely original cinematic universe entirely in podcast form. I'm Dalton DeShane.
And I'm Dylan Roth.
And you are now entering the Pod Universe.
Welcome to the Pod Universe, a podcast about cinematic universes, both real and imagined, but mostly imagined. I am your floppy-haired anthropologist with no game host, Dylan Roth.
And I am your let beautiful women do anything they want host, Dalton DeShane.
And together we have been building out an all-original cinematic universe of science fiction movies entirely in podcast form. But every once in a while, we also like to invite a guest onto the show to pitch us some unoriginal properties, if you will, some licenses that perhaps our studio should acquire.
IP
intellectual I'm sorry. Okay. To pitch us some unoriginal intellectual property.
We need to make money in this business. And
yes, our studio, at our imaginary film studio, we are dedicated to creating new stories. But we know that's not worth anything. It's not worth any money. No one's coming to see those. So we have to finance them somehow. And that is by shamelessly relaunching extant properties that perhaps studios don't really care about anymore.
Yeah, beloved properties such as today's subject, which I'm sure everyone is clamming.
Clamming? There's no clamming in this.
Hey, PETA.
Our guest today is a freelance culture writer whose work you've read in GQ, Vulture, Vanity Fair, Polygon, Kotaku, and loads of other places. He's recently launched a monthly column for Aftermath called The Work, where he's digging into the active resistance in and through fiction. Please welcome to the Pod Universe, Joshua Rivera.
Hello. I am empath Joshua Rivera.
Which basically means you're psychic. In the 1990s, being an empath meant you had psychic abilities.
So the film that we're going to talk about today has taken the entire narrative utility of an empath directly from Star Trek: The Next Generation. Because on Star Trek TNG, Counselor Troy's job is to explain out loud the feelings of characters whose faces you maybe can't see because you're doing dishes while you watch. That is her job on the show, and that is what Forrest Whitaker does in this movie.
Well, I guess we'll get into it, but he also just has psychic abilities.
Yeah.
He's the version of an empath. Brian Fuller saw this movie and was like, that's what an empath is, and then wrote the Hannibal series.
It's so funny, man. It's so my favorite is when they're chasing Syl through an alley and he just sort of she went that way. You know?
No, but he's bullshitting though. He doesn't actually know at that point. All right, let's double back a little bit. Let's talk. We've yet to say, Josh, you picked an interesting movie that it is a film franchise, but it's been left untouched for decades, which means it's ripe for reimagining. Yes. Josh, you brought us Species.
I did.
Which is, I was convinced, I thought this was... Doesn't Guillermo del Toro have a movie from early in his career about an alien woman that he just wrote but not directed or something?
There's a movie called Relic that came out at a similar time, and that is another wandering through sewers with flashlights chasing a creature movie, directed by Guillermo del Toro. I believe that was his first Hollywood film, if I'm not mistaken. I remember watching it and immediately forgetting it.
No, I was thinking of Mimic. We're thinking of Mimic.
Mimic, not Relic. Okay.
And
My
that was
apologies.
1997.
There was also a movie that came out around the same time called Relic that was the same kind of movie.
I thought we were watching the Guillermo del Toro movie. I did not realize this was a Roger Donaldson.
Roger Donaldson, the director of can't remember the names of the films he directed.
nothing super notable.
Dante's Peak. Dante's Peak is a Roger Donaldson.
Yes.
A real 90s workman, action director, suspense director. And but Species is really best known not as a theatrical feature, but as a movie that horny teens would rent from the from the maybe not Blockbuster, but from their local video store.
We had Family Video.
Expecting probably something sexier than this.
It's fairly sexy.
We'll talk about the basic premise. Josh, how were you introduced to the 1995 science fiction thriller Species?
It was purely through that like sensational presentation,
Yeah.
right? Like because this was like an active thing. Like they actively sold the movie this way, right?
Yes.
Where it's just sort of like we found this really hot lady from Canada. She's Canadian, right? Natasha Henstridge.
I don't know. They usually are.
The hot ladies.
I call it the Trisha Helfer effect.
I mean, yeah. Well, that's exactly the thing, right?
Yeah, it's marketed exactly the same way as the first season of Battlestar Galactica was, which is we've got a tall blonde model who's going to try acting, and you will watch because of the amount of her you get to see. And then what you actually get is, in the case of Battlestar Galactica, turns out she's a really good actor, and also the show is great. But Species. Slightly different analysis on my end, but Josh, so you saw it because you and I are about the same age, so you would have been a little bit too young when it came out in theaters to have been the target audience of this movie, but the right age when it was on cable.
Yes. So like that's exactly it. You know, like cable, being also like aware of it because like this is also like porn isn't everywhere on the internet. You don't really know how to do all that stuff. And so like this is kind of like one of the I guess marks in this movie's notoriety is just sort of like it's one of the last efforts where it's just like you could do something like that where you could sell it with sex. And what is interesting is that like the movie tries very hard to not be like prurient, you know? Like the movie tries to exhibit kind of a commendable level of restraint. Like this is a movie that like is definitely not about the most interesting things in it, you know?
Agreed.
But it is trying to be more than sort of like the come see the hot lady take her top off like 5 times film.
Yeah, you were saying you saw this on cable. I have to assume the cable version jumps directly from us meeting the team to the climax where she's a monster because everything else in the middle, you know, it's like when you got the clean version of Blink-182's Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, the song Happy Holidays, You Bastard is just an instrumental on that album on the clean version because there would be no way to censor it. And I have to imagine this movie is pretty similar on cable. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of the thing with like this whole era of like cable films, right? They're sort of like half remembered dreams that you have, you know? As such, you know, going back and watching it as an adult, there are like a million things that I don't recall the movie being about. Like, first of all, like you see the poster of like, you know, half naked, half green Natasha Henstridge, and you think, oh, this is a movie about an alien out to kill people and bang dudes.
Yeah.
And the actual story is that like she is grown in a lab. You know, like we are in communication with aliens. Yeah. Aliens send us genetic instructions, and these scientists at SETI, led by Ben Kingsley, combine that with human DNA to grow a hybrid person and study them. And like that is already like so far removed from like what you imagine the second you see like the poster, and like the whole movie's kind of like that.
You think it's going to be like what the setup of Men in Black 2 is, which is that an alien pea-pod lands in a farm, sees a billboard of a lingerie model and says, "This is how I will infiltrate society." In actuality, it's more like the setup of Pluribus. Well, you know, like 20 years later, where it uses the relatively plausible means of communication with aliens, which is through information. The screenwriter behind this movie, whose name I did not jot down, so I will now be looking it up while I talk to you about it.
I think Michael Durand is his name.
Thank you. He's interested in the idea that first contact would probably not be through interstellar travel, but through interstellar communications. And then if we were going to meet an alien, it would have to be because they sent their genetic information here for us to grow. And then that got put through a bunch of revisions about, how to make it into a marketable movie. And then we ended up with the notion of, okay, we grow this human-alien hybrid in a lab. A joke in the movie that they poke fun of in the script, but it's only funnier through 20 years of gender theory after being like, oh, we picked a woman because we thought she'd be more docile.
Yes.
And she grows up in this lab during which she's played by baby Michelle Williams.
That's right.
Yes.
Is fairly stirring as not a big surprise.
She's great.
She aged into like an Academy Award winning actor.
She would have been 15 tops. She was born in 1980.
The first 20 minutes of this movie are about this confused little girl trying to figure out how to function in the world, A, as a human, B, as a woman in our society. Like, the first thing that happens to her after she gets almost gassed to death is that she is assaulted by a guy who's sleeping in the train car she smuggles in. Of course, she immediately kills him. So
sure,
but
she's an alien.
Well, yeah,
she's not an alien.
But like, it's the kind of thing where like she's capable of defending herself from this stuff, but it's immediately there. What's different, I think, than what you'd maybe do with it now is that she goes from being the prey to be exploited to being the predator basically immediately.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about Syl, which is what they name her, is she is the kind of sort of a slasher movie villain in the sense that she is so clever and resourceful that you kind of have to root for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As we talk about like the sort of various influences of this movie, I think after, like the Michelle Williams part is kind of its own movie.
Mm-hmm.
This, story of this, child experimented on who breaks out and, as you said, is kind of finding her way in the world. As soon as that part ends, because she rapidly ages. That is something we are taught about this life form.
Yeah.
Rapidly aging and evolving and things like that. After that, the movie that comes next is like the perfect Venn diagram between Alien and a porn parody of Alien. But like, it's not either, because it does have designs by H.R. Giger. Like, the Alien design is by the guy who did the Xenomorph, but the movie itself is all of H.R. Giger's subtext made text. Like, what if we took all the stuff about genitalia and pregnancy that is sort of inherent in H.R. Giger's work and made it the plot of the movie? And it's about an alien trying to fuck. And that's the thing that I think most surprised me about this movie is like, you're following her as she kills her way to her goal, but her goal is to get pregnant. She is just trying to fuck the whole movie.
Yeah.
Which is where the sort of lurid aspect comes in, because it's her trying to sleep with all these men. And that's why she's constantly taking her top off every time we see her, is because she is trying to get laid. I think that's where it's sort of reputation as like softcore pornography, or like why it was marketed in lad mags and things like that, was because you go because you want to see this hot lady trying to fuck, but also you want to see Alien. And there's that scene early on where they're in the lab with like the cells of her or whatever. I thought it was one of the coolest scenes in the movie. This awesome like take on the face hugger lab from Alien. They've got these cells that are growing, and it's really nasty, cool special effects work, a lot of cool practical wet slimy effects. Never happens again in the movie. It is like this isolated moment of true sci-fi horror, and you will never get that again unless it's accompanied by the sex aspect,
Well, there's also the thing we were talking about, how it gets lurid. My problem there is that when you compare it to other movies that are like, their main thing is that they're erotic thrillers, this film is really sterile to me. Like, other than the fact that we have the centerpiece of the film, this woman with a great body is frequently showing us her body, the sexuality of the movie is not very sexy to me. I don't know.
Well,
like,
because she's not trying to be sexy. She's trying to get fucked.
yeah,
You know,
that's
like,
the thing. But like the movie, you would go into the movie thinking
Yeah.
that the seduction would be seductive.
Yeah.
But really, it reads as kind of sad and desperate.
Yes.
And I'm not 100% sure that the script and the direction are totally in concert about this.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, the script and the performance are both very clear that she's almost kind of to be pitied here. Like, we get all of these flashes that she's having these really powerful, like, sex dreams where we see, like, fully alien people from her planet, like, swirling around in this water, grappling with each other in rapture. And, like, that's almost like sort of tormenting her. Like, somebody, like, you know, she's just completely driven by this thing. And maybe it's just the marketing and that is messing me up, because I think that also the way these scenes are shot is just very... Listen, I love a sex scene. I love it.
Dylan's not a monster fucker.
I love a sex
At the end of the
scene.
day, Dylan's not a monster fucker.
I love a
you know?
titty. But there's also something to me that's very terminally 90s about the sexuality in this movie, which is that it's all titty based.
Yeah.
Well,
This creature even gives birth out of its chest. Like, it's everything is just about, she's got great breasts. And other than we have her riding Alfred Molina at some point towards the end of the movie, it sort of seems like we're completely uninterested in anything below the waist, which is very ungeeker to me. There's just not tactile enough. Like, even like when she's like in the hot tub with this guy or whatever, and she's kind of coming at him, it's weirdly unsexy.
this is why this movie is so interesting to me.
Yeah.
One, because like it was so heavily sold as being about sex, but the movie is not really that interested in sex. I'll come back to this again, but like to me, it's a movie about gender more than sex. Mm-hmm. And the first 20 minutes that Michelle Williams has is a movie about like, you know, the experience of becoming an adult woman, right?
Yeah.
Like the first thing that she encountered, you know, like these men that are trying to control her, right? The itinerant man who, you know, attempts to like rape her. She's exposed to TV ads, you know, like, you know, emphasizing like beauty and sex. And then when she enters the cocoon and it becomes exits as Natasha Henstridge, the movie stops being about women and starts being about men. So like basically to bring it back, if anybody hasn't seen it, the plot of the movie is that like Ben Kingsley, who like conducted this experiment at SETI, he assembles a crack pod of a crack team of experts, whose expertise do not make sense. You know, like, you've got Alfred Molina, who we've mentioned a few times. He is a Harvard professor, and like his expert is like cross-cultural studies, right, or something. I think we've got Michael Madsen, who is just sort of like a bounty hunter,
playing every Michael Madsen character. Yeah,
but he is, exactly. He's just playing Michael Madsen. You have Forrest Whitaker, who, as we've joked before, he's an empath. They don't even say what his job is. You know, like at one point, someone asks him, like, you know, what kind of qualifications do you have? And he just like dodges the question.
Professional empath. Yeah. He gets hired by researchers hunting aliens. You know, he's just a freelancer.
Yet this is not the first time this movie has happened to him. And that's why he's so savvy to everything, where he's like, Alfred Molina's character, I really don't think you should stay here in this hotel.
Oh God, we got another species
I really think
to hunt down.
I really think you should come with me. Last time I did this exact thing, that guy got murdered. So,
and there's like as an empath, as we've established, he's very psychic, and there doesn't seem to be any limit on his empathy. Like he projects emotions from like watching footage of somebody on like television, which is like, I don't even think Stephen King would be so bold, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
well, because his power is just picking up on the context clues of a scene. It's like, it's literally a moment. They walk into a room where there's a body that's been shredded in half, and he says, something bad happened here. Thank you, Counselor Troy. I think something bad. Yes, the Romulan is angry. He's steaming and yelling at you through the view screen.
So incredibly funny. And then I forget the actress' name, but the character's name is Dr. Laura Baker. She's played by the woman who from CSI, who everybody knows.
Marg Helgenberger.
Yeah, Marg Helgenberger. She's great. And she's the only lady on the team, and it's very funny because she like doesn't bring anything to to the table.
Yeah.
She's just like a doctor of some kind, I think.
Well, nobody really brings anything. Like, none of them are bringing personality. I'll tell you that much.
This is
yeah.
Ben Kingsley's performance in this movie. And maybe it's just because I am so baseball brained right now, but the phrase that came to mind is replacement level. Like, if you had pulled an actor off the street and asked him to play this role, he would have given the exact same performance that Sir Ben Kingsley gives in Species. It is so nothing.
It's wild. It's like he actually transforms into a lesser actor.
Yes.
Like, I've never seen someone disappear into mediocrity in this way. But what's interesting about all this is that, like, it becomes a movie about, like, Dr. Laura Baker aside, you have, like, these different shades of paternalism, of, like, masculinity. Like, Alfred Molina, sort of like the sensitive intellectual, Michael Madsen's the alpha male, and Forrest Whitaker's an empath. But through the plot, because they're not actually like leveraging their supposed expertise, they're all just expressing different forms of anxiety over like an adult woman expressing her sexuality, right? It just becomes like, we can't let this woman fuck, and that's sort of like where the movie is interesting in a way that I don't necessarily think is intended, because like, I think as you were talking about before, it's kind of interested in just being a straight up the middle 90s thriller, not even an erotic thriller, right? Like, we're talking about like, I don't know, like...
it feels like an X-Files episode. But an X-Files episode would have been sexier because routinely it was. And also because
And because Mulder and Scully would have been.
Well, yeah, because Mulder and Scully, that show runs so much on the great chemistry between David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson. And here we have Mark Helgenberger and Michael Madsen. They're not falling in love exactly. They're just kind of like, well, in a very casual, sort of normal guy way, they're two people who meet and they're kind of hitting it off. And we should hook up while we're here. It's not very compelling because neither of them are very compelling, and the scenario is not very compelling. But at the very least, if they were Mulder and Scully, this movie would have some steam coming off of it.
I just want to say, because we're talking about some very mediocre performances from our crack team of experts, but I got to say, I loved Natasha Henstridge's performance in this movie. I mean, we've talked about, obviously, she was cast because she's a beautiful model and they wanted to sell tickets that way and stuff. I think she's so good in this.
Yeah, she does a good job.
Because it's a performance similar to like Scarlett Johansson in Under the Skin, right? Where it's like...
a movie I'm sure we'll be talking more about.
Because like, she only speaks when she needs to. In fact, for a while, it's not clear whether she can speak English or not. She has this sort of like wide-eyed innocence that does make you kind of root for her, right? Because she's not playing it like a mustache-twirling supervillain. She is playing it as a stranger to this world who is trying to accomplish her purpose, and it's fascinating to watch her. I thought she was the most compelling performance. And there is a sort of like, it's not even a hatred for humans. Like when she kidnaps the one woman that rescued her in her car, the woman's like, please, like, I don't want to hurt you or something. And she's like, well, no, you do. Like, once you see, I can't remember the line, but she's like, once you see like who I am, you will want to hurt me. Like,
yeah. Well, she operates on what we think of as animal instinct, but she expresses it in a very sort of matter-of-fact, eloquent way.
Yeah.
And like, she kills people who threaten her directly, and she kills a woman who she sees as a potential threat sexually to the guy, that someone who might take the guy that she's after. Certainly in self-defense, because she does get assaulted twice. But it is very much like a just law of the jungle kind of way, right?
Yeah.
There's no rage. She's not even really sinister.
If anything, there's a bit of like innocence and wonder to it, where she is kind of taking in the world around her, not in like, this is a planet I need to conquer, but like enjoying sort of learning about the people she's immersed in.
But even on top of that, I get the impression from her performance that Syl sincerely believes that everybody else she encounters is operating under the same set of assumptions that she is. I don't think she sees these other humans as prey. I think she sees them as peers, but within her own framework of what being a person is. And that's really interesting. And she does sell it. She does a really good job. I would agree that she gives the best performance in this film, which again is wild because of who the cast is.
Yeah, I mean, this is her first role, and she's up against Ben Kingsley, Michael Madsen, Alfred Molina, Forrest Whitaker. Like, it is a stacked cast, and
Michelle Williams maybe. If she had gotten more screen time, obviously she would not have been a fit for the final version of this character. But I mean, she's maybe like a close second for best performance, and just doesn't get enough innings in. So
look, and maybe the dudes don't give as good of a performance because they do have to like say lines, and the lines they're given are not, a lot to work with, and Natasha Henstridge is just she's basically all doing face acting, and so she's free to, make it her own.
Ben Kingsley's character has so much potential to be interesting as like I am the father of this creature that is a dangerous thing, and the very first decision I make in this movie is to execute her. And will we be examining that? Will those two characters in fact ever run into each other again? No.
He's like Dr. Frankenstein, and like nobody realizes this.
Yeah.
Like at any point in the story. That
One thing I noticed about the third act, which is, of course, alien movie, that's when things get nasty. We get very like the Mummy 1999 levels of CGI going on. But then you also get H.R. Giger going wild with like nipple tentacles and stuff. And the aforementioned giving birth out of her chest, stuff like that. But what I noticed most about the third act is suddenly any sort of themes that had been established or like story just disappears in favor of generic action climax. Like Ben Kingsley, to your point, the one time that him and the creature are now in the same room, instantly killed.
Yeah.
Just not even like a line about like, I made you, or anything like that. Just killed. And now we're just off to the races of special effects. It is a purely special effects. There's none of like really the sex conversation we've had, or I don't know, like it all goes out the window in favor of, all right, let's get to the fireworks.
Yeah, it's also like in a sewer, right? Like like a visually uninteresting thing, scene that like even at this time you've seen in a million movies, right? Like you've seen look better in other movies, like it looks better in Mimic. This movie isn't necessarily like swinging for the fences, but like it has all these interesting ideas and texture, right? Like it's very interested in Los Angeles, right? Like there's this one point when like after she's exited her cocoon and she's loose in the world, right? And Ben Kingsley wants to know, what's she going to do now? And Alfred Molina's character goes, Los Angeles, city of the future. A perfectly antisocial culture.
Yeah,
no taboos. Antisocial culture because everyone's in their cars and isolated from one another, And like the movie's never going to really delve into those ideas very deeply, but it is very much interested in like the modern problem of slipping in and out of so many people's lives and being so woven into the fabric of other people's lives in a city like that like it reduces your community to meat, Again, this is not something that the movie is expressly delving into. Part of this is me reading that into it, but part of it is just sort of like, it's there, like these characters are saying these things and the movie is shot this way. I think it comes from that sort of provocation of like, of sex, but like, because the movie's so weirdly uninterested in it, right? It's just sort of being like, going for that sort of like conservative, right? Like this is the look at the moral rot, in our cities.
Yeah, we've got a few data points here of like you said, this conversation about LA. There are no taboos, and then you've got Natasha or Sill's, whole goal, which is sex for a biological imperative, not for love or connection, but out of purely reproduction. And then you've got Michael Madsen and Marg Hergenberger's relationship, which is also not out of love, but just out of proximity. And so there's all these data points that could connect to be a theme about, sex for hollow purposes, or, sex without love, or any kind, but it never connects those dots. But they're all there in the melange of the film.
This is one of those films where I would have a really hard time believing that anyone's whole heart was in making it. I've seen some people praise the design of Syl as an alien from H.R. Giger, but truly to me, it looks like a sketch of the alien, the xenomorph that he threw away because it made his most boring nephew horny. He's like, nope, hang on. If Jeremy thinks that's hot, this isn't gay enough. I'm throwing it out. We're starting from scratch. I mean, the end of the movie takes place in a plain Star Trek cave planet set. It doesn't feel like the production design is very interesting. Nothing feels terribly unique or motivated.
Well, and the whole structure of the second act is Syl goes somewhere, kills someone, our team arrives right after. And that just repeats. It keeps, Syl goes to a new location, causes some violence, our team catches up, she's already gone. She's gone to point B, she kills someone, or there's some violence, the team shows up, she's already gone, And so there's not even any active conflict until the part with the car blowing up, towards the end of Act 2, and then everything that happens, and then when she gets that brunette hair, and I was like, oh,
suddenly.
Natasha Henstridge. Okay. Anyway,
we should talk about why she keeps moving on. No, it's fine. We should talk about why she keeps moving on though, because that's it. On the one hand, it kind of is like a conflictless film, but on the other, she keeps moving on because the men aren't good enough. The first scene is she goes home. It's really funny. She has cash. She goes to a motel. She asks the hotel clerk, "Where can I find men?" Where can I meet men? And he's like, "Oh, the club's over there." And so she goes to the club and she brings a guy home. Or she goes home with a guy who's got he's got money, he's got the cool car, he's got the clothes, and she kills him. And we find out when the investigators come, right after, that he had diabetes or something, he was not a pure specimen. So there's this running thread of the biological imperative, and also pure gender essentialism, right? Throughout the whole film. And also this Darwinism, this sort of social and biological Darwinism that's just steering Syl. And also kind of Michael Madsen is kind of portrayed as the clearest thinker because he just calls it like he sees it. Law of the jungle, animal kingdom, baby. You point, I shoot. You're here, we bang. And that's kind of the movie that to the extent that I think that anybody believes anything in this, right? The intent of the film seems to be we got to stop letting this stuff get in the way, it's very this is the era of men are from Mars, women are from Venus, right? All this stuff is in the air. And this movie is kind of an expression of that. And what makes it interesting is that with the remove of time, and the shifting culture, you can sort of see it as a document of how weird that all is,
Yeah, and also relate to the Darwinism thing, another reason she keeps moving on is she does understand herself to be hunted. And that is something that she expresses to that woman, she, even though she is in some ways a predator, right? We can see her killing abilities being, the Michelle Williams girl from early in the movie. She knows that everyone's after her, and she knows if they know what I am, they will kill me, right? And she knows that they're going to keep coming. So she is looking for it's not just the biological imperative to reproduce, but reproduce before you die, because she is part of a food chain. And so there is this just very elemental animal instinct to accomplish this before the hunter becomes the hunted, right?
Oh no, I think that's like, when you look at what like the writer has said, like that's the clearest articulation of like a thesis he gives, where it's sort of like, what if we, like he's playing in that science fiction tradition of humans not being the apex predators, of not being at the top of the food chain, and just sort of being like, okay, here is a scenario, yet another scenario where humanity is not top dog, and how we might be exploited.
You were talking about the notion of the men are not good enough, and I think it is an important clarification that Syl doesn't kill the first guy because he's diabetic. She turns him down because he's diabetic.
Yeah.
She kills him because he tries to rape her.
Yes.
She says, "I'd like you to take me back now," and he says, "No, I'll take you back when I'm done." Essentially, and so she kills him.
Yes.
The second guy she kills is someone who she pursues and who is hesitant to jump directly into bed with her right away, and finds her desperation a little off-putting, and second guesses the notion of having sex with Natasha Henstridge. And his hesitation is ultimately what gets him killed.
Yeah.
Yes.
If we're playing this very gender essentialist idea of, all right, so this guy, he's a predatory man, and even in the 90s, we think he's bad. And this guy, this guy here, he's a little soft. Michael Madsen would have just gone for it. He is neither predatory nor passive exactly. He's down to fuck, but he's not making any promises. And
she has a dream about him, right? Like she appeared.
Still does, yes. He literally becomes her ideal man. She settles for Alfred Molina because he's around, which is how a lot of us end up. That's just kind of how it is for us Alfred Molina types, by which I mean Italians. But I don't know. It's interesting. Like there is stuff like talking about. There's stuff that is baked in here. Whether or not it was part of the recipe is hard to say. But there is food for thought here, which is why I'm really interested in hearing what you want to do with the Species franchise once we purchase it from Amazon, who I believe would be the current owners, and relaunch
really
it. Well, because MGM was the original IP owner, and they now own Amazon.
So we're making an MGM Plus original feature.
Although, like, what do you call it? Like the direct-to-video sequels go to like sci-fi. It might have a very strange situation.
Movie to me is such like Sci-Fi Channel. Like I feel like that's my closest association is like early Sci-Fi Channel. This is the epitome of that, watching this took me back to that time. But I do want to touch on, before we go to our break, before we come back to hear the cinematic universe, have you seen any of the other Species movies, of which there are, I believe, 4? And do you want to give us any information about them?
I've only seen 2. Species 1 and 2.
Okay.
The first 2 are the only ones that were released theatrically. Species 2 comes out, I think, in 98. Okay. It's made for about the same budget, which is like in that 30 million range. It bombs. The first Species is a hit. It makes something like close to 100 million worldwide. And the second one, not so much. And then the other 2 movies are direct to video. They're like, they premiere on the Sci-Fi Channel. They get unrated, DVD releases, presumably with nudity. I don't know. I've not seen them. They look like utter garbage. And like, I like garbage, but like, I don't need to, like pop a Lactaid before watching that one, So I've only seen the second one. And the second one is super interesting in a lot of ways. Much like this movie, it's kind of 2 separate movies, like smashed together. But it does have a more coherent vision in that they are making a schlocky creature feature, like from the start.
Okay.
Right? Like the first half of the movie. Yeah, the first half of the movie is like creature feature schlock complimentary. The second half of the movie is creature feature schlock derogatory. So what they do is that they do the classic sequel inversion, where the being is a man. But it works differently. Because like it's on a mission to Mars that like a set of astronauts, they bring home like traces of like this alien. They're infected by it. It really takes root in only one character, which is like the all-American son of a senator, hero astronaut.
Oh, it's Flash Thompson getting the Venom symbiote in the
Basically,
comics.
That's funny. I
yeah.
was going to say it's J. Jonah Jameson's astronaut kid.
Oh yeah.
Who ends up bringing Venom
He looks just
home.
like him.
Yeah.
He looks just like the guy who plays, John Jameson in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Just skinnier. So the interesting thing about this movie is that, like, it is self-aware enough to know that it can't do that biological imperative thing and it not appear rapey, And so, like, it is deft in that first half, and the astronaut Ross is his name. It's a nightmare for him. Like, he is sort of like, he doesn't know what's going on to him. He's like sort of like he's the talk of the town. He has all of this privilege, so people want to sleep with him, and he's happy to. But then he just wakes up in these bloody nightmares with like children, like fully grown children that he's like keeping secret.
Whoa.
It's like nuts. It's like a genuinely interesting like creature feature, and it's got like all this thing, like, again, not stuff that like the movie is expressly interested in exploring. It's more like, this is in the air. It comes from this time and this culture, and it can't help but replicate these sort of, like structures of like male privilege and how we protect handsome, young, promising men, and, content warning for, self-harm. But at the midpoint of the movie, he's sort of like, he gets no help from his senator father. His father is just sort of like, you are hooking up with people. It comes with the territory, but don't let it, fuck up my career or your potential, prospects. No one knows what's going on with him. He can't seek help. And so he takes a shotgun to himself.
Damn.
Yeah. It's really like, again, like the first half of this movie is just sort of like this lost dude, just sort of like, in a nightmare of his own privilege, And then when he reconstitutes, because he is now, hybrid human alien, he is all instinct. And then things get like more of the, the exploitation, flick aspect of the movie comes out. I think they handle it pretty deftly, in the sense where it's just sort of like, they know that like it is in poor taste, even for a schlocky Species sequel, that like nobody wants to see a movie about like a rapist monster.
Sure.
So like,
and not everyone in the 90s knew that. So good for them.
Yeah. No, it's like just like Species 1. Like, there's like a shocking level of self-awareness that you wouldn't expect given the movie's reputation and how it was sold. So like, when it gets to the point where like he is just like all instinct, and like, again, this takes a cruel, dark turn because he knows what he's doing at this point. He starts hooking up with sex workers. And then when he finally like escalates to the point of like assaulting someone, he becomes aware of Syl, who in this movie is Eve, because technically she is a clone of Syl.
Okay.
Right. They do set up that there are 4 embryos in the beginning of the movie, which is like, that's exactly how many of these movies we can make.
Yes.
They turned out to be correct.
And at this point, then like the movie just pivots to him being like, Eve is my true mate. And Eve is not necessarily opposed to that, So it becomes like this sort of like push and pull between the two of them. And then Dr. Laura Baker and Michael Madsen, who return, trying to like, get a handle and everything like that. It's by no means good. It's a bad movie. But it does like this really interesting thing where it is, again, just sort of like, with the benefit of hindsight and distance and frankly disinterest in this franchise, it's sort of like it becomes an interesting document of the moment and the sort of like like ideas and like late 90s culture here at the end of history,
And I'm seeing that James Cromwell plays the senator. So
a thing that
not bad.
Essentially every single chapter in this saga has actors who have done a Star Trek. It is, and the deeper you get into it,
I'm sure
the
the more
deeper
there
cuts,
are.
the more there are. Dominic Keating is in one of these. He was on Enterprise. It doesn't get any sunnier.
They go to the Vancouver talent pool in a big way.
I am seeing that Natasha Henstridge does appear only in the opening scene of Species 3 because she was contracted for a trilogy, which means she's doing the same thing as
that Jamie Lee Curtis does
in
Halloween Resurrection.
Yeah. I will show up for the first scene and get killed off, and that's it.
All right. Well, you did a great job, Josh, of talking about how these movies spoke to the moment in which they were made, which is why I am so excited to hear what you have in mind for making them speak to our current moment when you pitch us your rebooted Species cinematic universe.
The SCU.
I think it should be the SCU.
The SCU?
I think we should put the P back in there.
From Species?
Yeah.
The SCU.
Because otherwise people are going to think it's the Stargate cinematic universe. And
Yeah.
Someone will eventually probably try to do a Stargate episode of this too, and they have to throw out everything that was on the TV shows.
The SPEAKU.
Oh, wait, no, actually, Dalton, you'll have to watch all 10 seasons of Stargate and however many there were of Atlantis and the one season of Stargate Universe as well.
I will walk away from this podcast.
Oh, and the Continuum TV movies.
All right, we will be right back. And when we come back, we will hear all about the SPEAKU, courtesy of our guest, Joshua Rivera. We will be right back.
We are back here in the Pod Universe with our guest, Joshua Rivera, who is about to pitch us his idea for a revitalized, rebooted, perhaps requilled. We'll find out.
Who knows?
Species franchise for the 2020s. Joshua, how do you want to go about this? What do you want to do with the Species franchise?
Well, Dalton.
Yes.
Sharks. So, like we were talking about before, I think the popular understanding of Species is that it's about sex. And as we who have just revisited the films have discovered, it's not really about sex.
A little more complicated than that.
Yeah. And so, like, I kind of want to run in that direction and make it about gender. I am most interested in the way that those original movies were kind of about expressions of gender in the most essentialist terms. I am interested in a film that does something similar, but with our more, expanded notions and understanding of, like what gender is and the many ways it's expressed.
As Joe Biden said, there's at least 3 of them, and that's more than they had in Species time.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, I kind of wanted to do, just to set the tonal map of this, because you brought up Under the Skin. That's kind of like if people were to imagine like a 21st century Species, they would probably think, Under the Skin is kind of like that.
Yeah.
I kind of want, my touch point would be more like Titan, the Julia Ducournau film.
Yeah.
Where it's just sort of like you have some genre thrills, but I'm kind of interested in like a genuinely like humanist, tender ending place, right? Yeah. And so the way that I imagine it set up is just sort of like a woman who we don't know, we don't know anything about her. She is just giving birth. From her comes 2, and this is the first twist of the film. We're going to obscure this, in like the way that it's marketed and sold. But she gives birth to twins who are both extremely upsettingly mature for like newborns.
Baby geniuses.
Yeah. So this like very like grim, horrific opening like origin where like these 2 infant beings are born. We don't necessarily know the context. And then they both sort of like go off and cocoon themselves. And that's kind of like our cold open, right? Like, Species. We have no context for this. And we're not going to get a whole lot, because we're trying to build a cinematic universe. And like the focus of this film is going to be to sort of like a textured, emotional thriller. And I love this idea because, again, we're going to obscure the fact that this is a movie about 2 of these beings. The question being, where is the other shoe going to drop? When is the other one going to show up? Because we're mostly going to follow one of them.
Okay.
And I call them Jean because Syl is also like a cute genetic pun. So I give the protagonist of this film a more literal, blunter genetic pun. And so we follow Jean. It's kind of a road movie, much like in the original Species. Jean is being pursued, but we never know from who, and we never really know why. And it's important that Jean is played by someone who is comfortable with gender fluidity, because the way that Jean works is that they're of age, but they're still like new, right? So they don't know how they are going to express their humanity. And so, and here I take the Forrest Whitaker stuff here. So Jean's a bit of an empath, right? Like this is how they're sort of like alien genetics are sort of expressed, where like as Jean connects with people, they sort of like kind of adjust their gender expression, and at first, and this is kind of like Jean's journey throughout the film, where like at first Jean is just sort of like going off of what other people like. And this is how you get into sort of like, a little bit more like erotic thriller territory. I don't want to do a complete rug pull and just be like, this is not, like sex isn't a thing here at all, because it is. But also, like I kind of want it to be like a more like self-determination thing where Jean ends in the place where like they decide what they look like and how they are going to ultimately integrate with humanity, if that's what they end up choosing. So it's kind of a road movie in that sense, where it's just sort of like, it's more romantic than the original like Species, where like Jean is genuinely looking for connection and not necessarily sure when to sort of like bridge that gap and to make the relationship sexual. So there's sort of like, the viewer knows what Jean is, and that like there's that ticking time bomb of like when, like is something going to happen when they have sex? What is that going to mean for the world and Jean? And I see it as like this interesting road movie, and that's probably the closest we get to like Under the Skin, I think, because like that's, that kind of the structure of that movie, even though I think that movie has like very different interests. Meanwhile, what I want to do, what I am thinking of with this twin that we introduce, I kind of want to put them in like the most gendered situation imaginable. I kind of want to put them with like a fundamentalist church,
Interesting.
And I want them to, throughout the movie, to sort of like veer violently back and forth between extreme mask expression and femgender expression, to the point that like people in the congregation don't know that these are the same person, because their world is so divided in a gendered way.
Yeah, they would never assume that.
And they would never assume that, yeah. One of the things that like I'm noodling with is like how much I want them to live there, like Jean's sibling, right? How much I want run through that community, for lack of a better term. Because like the end goal is to sort of like have that sort of self-loathing kind of, like break them a little bit, where they just sort of like don't get this aspect of human culture, and they just sort of like they say fuck it, and they go in search of their sibling. And this is sort of like the bluntest part of it. And I would probably like, like were this to be a thing that we were actually working on, I would like, make it more nuanced or interesting. But like, I think Jean's evil twin, for lack of a better term, finds Jean, is frustrated by them, and says, no, we need to dominate them this way, exploiting this rigid way of thinking. They deserve to be, just material for us. And Jean is kind of like coming to terms with peace with themselves,
Yeah.
And so like that's kind of the arc of the movie, like there's stuff there that like I've put very bluntly in ways that I don't even like right now.
Yeah, that's the difference between explaining a movie and getting to play it out as a film, right? We run into this problem even when we're doing our scripted episodes, where we are reading essentially the screenplay of a movie that the audience can't see, where we sometimes have to spell out things that really should just be atmospheric, because like we need to make sure this gets across, right?
Yeah.
And I think that you've got a really interesting premise here in that you're getting to explore. I think. Do we have a name for the other twin? By the way,
Not yet. No. The other twin will probably just be like a non-gendered name. Like an Alex.
It is funny they were Gene and Jean, but the problem is
Gene and Edix. Yeah. I am curious. Do you have an actor in mind for the twins?
No.
Because I think
so. There was a moment I had where I was like, maybe this character is 5 actors.
Sure.
But I do think, at the very least for Gene, it should just be an actor.
I think this is the role that Emma Corrin was born to play. Because they're non-binary.
Yes.
They are beautiful. I mean, they played Princess Diana, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
But they also have kind of an alien look about them, which was exploited in Deadpool and Wolverine. They present all across the gender spectrum at like events and red carpets and stuff.
Yeah,
and
that's actually a pretty good fit also because like we were just talking about it, you're talking about Josh, you want someone who's comfortable with extremes of gender as well. And that there's a sort of kind of sort of ridiculous sort of stereotype of someone who's non-binary having to be androgynous, which I know drives a lot of non-binary people completely up the wall that this is the expectation. Since the whole idea of being non-binary is to not have an expectation about it. But then this is somebody who is very much not that, in that they'll do whatever. There are no rules. And so that probably makes them potentially would find this role appealing. And also they're a name, which a lot of, there aren't a ton of non-binary actors who you would think of the top of your head who are like, oh, that's a person who audiences would recognize on a poster and say, I know them.
Yeah.
So that's cool. But I like that you've done is establish essentially 2 philosophies around gender. One, which is it is what you make of it. And the other is that it is a set of rigid expectations. And I think that just having your twin character start life under those conditions, like you are wondering how long do we want to be there? I think even like just the first act of it and just what it is like to then enter the world with these specific conditions that you feel like you have to meet in order to be whatever kind of person society expects of you. I like the idea that the expectations are so rigid within this community, then we get to kind of play with exploring fundamentally how much difference there is in the expectations within a really harshly, explicitly gendered society. And just like your average blue state, I think versus you have Gene representing sort of more of a progressive, gender fluidity and getting to find out where they fit there and not necessarily ever having to stick to a particular appearance. But I like where you have, like, at a certain point, it's no longer about what other people want from them. It's about what they want to be. It reminds me of 2 science fiction influences. The first being, no surprise here, a Star Trek episode. Josh, you will have seen this. This is The Perfect Mate, starring Famke Janssen as an empathic character. Her deal is that while she always looks like Famke Janssen, her personality is psychically influenced by what the wants and desires of other people around her. The other one is Megan from Excalibur, who literally transforms subconsciously based on empathic feedback that she receives. To the extent that, like, when she develops a little crush with Nightcrawler, she turns blue.
It's a good blend, I think, between, as you're talking about, these sort of contemporary takes on gender, but as is also important, I think, for starting a cinematic universe, it's also kind of a very basic Hollywood structure that, for lack of a more contemporary term, that brother versus brother thing, right? Like, I'm thinking of like old Westerns where like one brother grows up to be the sheriff and the other's an outlaw, and they are
on destined
the sides
to be,
of the law.
One of them will end the other. It's just destiny.
Yeah, because they're brought up different ways. Their pa died and one went off and joined a gang of outlaws and the other, but it's that kind of these siblings who grow up and end up having, these differing views of the world. And that is, even as we're exploring more subtle and nuanced topics, a sort of structure that I think a Hollywood movie can play with that will give us some strong bones for launching the franchise. And I assume, you said this is, taking after Titan, more of these kind of art house things. So I assume the third act is a big special effects battle between the two siblings with lots of lasers and explosions.
I am curious because the aspect that's missing here from what audiences might expect from a Species remake is a more explicit level of monster moviedom. Like, I like that you've stated in your pitch that the audience has been provided with the ammunition in this story to expect catastrophe when Jean does finally have sex, and that anticipation of there's gonna be violence, there's gonna be blood and guts here, would probably be enough to tide a lot of people over from there being a lot of blood and guts for a while. But I do think that you probably, I feel like I think you have a little bit of an obligation to have some violence in this
do you have any
film.
plans to get goopy?
That is what the twin character is for.
Okay, great. So the twin character is more of the violent side of
something closer to the arc that
Syl
Natasha
has.
Henstridge it still has in the original.
Yes.
Why don't we just call that character Syl?
We can't. Sorry.
Okay.
Right. It's a complicated thing. Yeah.
However, I have something a little. I got a scheme. I got a little.
We love those.
Scheme.
Let's scheme.
So part of the fun of this, I think, would be to drop something else in theaters, roughly within like 3 to 6 months of this movie dropping. Right.
Okay. Very similar.
Like Iron Man and Incredible Hulk.
Oh, I was going to say 28 years later and then the Bone Temple. But
okay.
Probably more like that. Anyway, go ahead.
And this movie, at least for the initial marketing of it, is just called Domain. And it is a up the middle, I want to say like neon A24 horror thing.
Okay.
It's about a reality television show a la Too Hot to Handle. The premise of Too Hot to Handle, for those of you who don't know, is it is like bottom of the barrel reality TV where it's like we put a bunch of hot people on an island and they have points and they lose points if they fuck.
And everyone knows this.
And everybody knows it. Yes,
They've just
exactly.
Like the whole premise of their show is we put hot people with poor impulse control on the show where they know there are cameras everywhere.
Okay, you say poor impulse control, but I'm coming at this from sex is more real than points.
I assume that they're competing on this show with the goal of winning.
Yeah.
Maybe
I think
they're
it's like a
competing to
cash
have a lot of
prize.
sex.
And so like, I think the show is pretty wretched. But I think it's fun, a fun setting for a horror movie. So we're going to like, again, while this other movie's out there, and still in the conversation, this movie calling Domain, because that's what the reality show is called. They tease everybody, which sort of like this island is your domain, is what they say. And it is going to be sold as a movie about a reality, people competing in a reality show like this, right? Where the express goal is like, don't fuck, but you're gonna want to fuck. And the hook, what's going to get people in is that it's going to be like it's a slasher, like someone is killing these hot people on this island. And because of the way the reality show is constructed, right, we're like cut off from the rest of the world. The producers are very hands off, automating everything because they really want to dehumanize these people and like get them drunk and sort of like make them do bad shit. Mm-hmm. No one's going to fucking know or be there to help them, right? However, you will find out that the killer is fucking Syl from Species, the original monster. She's back.
Oh, shit. That's why it can't be
couldn't use it. That's why it couldn't
That's why it can't be Syl.
Yeah.
And then you have the marketing beat where it's just sort of like, maybe you have to do this before the movie premieres. In my auteurist heart, the movie, at the end of the movie, you see the title Domain, and then it moves through the taxonomical hierarchy: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus,
Species. Fuck yes, Josh.
Damn.
Cut the check.
Damn.
I love it.
I
did not see it coming, and it's perfect. It's perfect.
You have hit on something that has not occurred to us, but I think is brilliant, which is any other time there's been a cinematic universe, it's been based on properties like Marvel Comics or things like that, so that when another movie comes out, we didn't know how big the MCU was going to get when Iron Man came out. But when the Incredible Hulk came out, we understood these are of a piece together because they're Marvel Comics. When you're doing something like this, I mean, Species, it's based on Species, but we're expanding it into more original ideas and stuff. You can stealth launch a cinematic universe.
Well, that's not entirely accurate.
Okay.
Someone did do it.
Who did?
Our homie M. Night Shyamalan.
That's true. You're right. Okay, I take it back. M. Night beat us to it.
When I was talking to Kristen about this, I was like, I want people to feel the way I felt when I saw Bruce Willis at the end of Split.
Well, Josh, coming at us live from Philadelphia right now.
This is so weird that this came up because earlier today I had an idea for a post that I ended up deciding was too bad to even post on Blue Sky, which was, tell me if this is anything. Mr. Glass, Mr. Ass, or Mr. Grass, nobody breaks for free. Is that anything?
No, I think you got us.
But also, I did laugh.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, well, now it lives here.
Okay.
No, I love that. I love the idea of, okay, so fill us in on Syl. Where has she been? Is this still Natasha Henstridge?
So we have flexibility here, right? Because there are. So the funny thing about those original 4 movies is that even though there are like 4 viable embryos, right? The sequels actually don't have anything to do with them.
Really?
Yeah, I think 2 maybe does, but the other 2, no. The first 2 movies have their own dangling plot threads that are like completely unresolved. Like at the end of the first Species, there's an infected rat, as you remember.
Yeah.
And like Species 2 has nothing to do with it. Totally uninteresting.
Love that.
And then I forget the stinger at the end. Oh, the end of Species 2, Eve. It's an open question as to whether or not when Eve and Ross have like their climactic confrontation, they do start having sex, but it's a question as to like whether actually anything happened because they're both killed, right? So at the end of Species 2, like Eve's corpse is in an ambulance. It's being carted away, presumably dead, and then you see her belly expand, and that's where the movie ends.
And they don't pick that up in Species 3.
I don't think they picked that up in Species 3.
Nobody's seen Species 3.
It's impossible to know.
It's impossible to know. Nobody on Earth can answer that.
Either way, those embryos are still an open question to me.
Okay.
Yeah. And so like this cell would be grown from one of the remaining embryos, may or may not be played by Natasha Henstridge. Completely up to her.
Well, yeah. The thing is that if she's a contestant on this show, that would be really weird for this kind of show to have.
It would be.
To have a woman, regardless of how stacked, in her 50s in this show would be out of character.
Yeah.
You would want like people of the same like generational class,
Yes.
like if it was like today, it's like Isabella Merced's, cohort, right? The kids in Alien Romulus,
Sure.
So it would probably be somebody else.
So somebody younger, but it is Syl. It's one of these clones, I guess. Not clones, but parallel.
Yeah, one of those other fertilized hybrid cells that has hit maturity in our day and age. And so it feels like there's certainly tremendous potential for satire in this, and in a completely different angle than what you've already done with your Species movie, because your Species movie is about gender and relating to the world through gender. And this is a movie that can really be about sex and the sexual marketplace, because that is the environment the show is on. And so beyond just being a parody of reality TV, it can be a parody of the whole impulse behind that show. I think that's really fun.
Now, I assume this makes Species 1 and 2 canon to the Species cinematic universe.
At the very least, it does Species 1. It might be like I'm going to pull a legacy sequel.
Sure.
Yeah, we can
whatever
ignore the other ones. Yeah, we can do Halloween 2016. Was it 2016? It doesn't matter.
18, I think.
2018.
We're gonna David Gordon Green this shit.
we keep bringing up Alien, and we didn't even mention that Michelle Williams, star of Halloween H2O.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
You know why? Because I forgot she was in it.
Oh, it's great. Her and baby Josh Hartnett.
I remember the baby Josh Hartnett is in it. I forgot Michelle Williams. Was
Yeah,
in it.
she's the girlfriend.
I only saw it once. You know what helped me remember? She'd had a stupider haircut. I remember she was in the movie.
Yeah, like Josh Hartnett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Gene and their sibling, Anetic Experiment, were they born the same way as Syl? Are they also from
No.
that alien signal?
No.
Okay.
So that is the subject of the third film
Ah.
in this
Okay,
cinematic
segue.
universe, which I call The Origin of the Species. Shout out to
Okay.
We're putting
Yep.
Josh in charge of naming things from now on.
Yeah.
So this is like completely. This one is where I'm completely like pulling shit out of my ass because I don't have it fully thought out as
That's
well as I
fine.
do the other stuff. But what I envision for this is kind of like I kind of want to do like a live action Scavenger's Reign, where like explorers are on a hostile planet. They are forced to integrate into the planet in order to survive, and they're just different. And like some of them get too different. There's like a struggle for survival, and the most human of them is the woman that comes back to Earth, who makes it back to Earth, and she is the one who sort of like gives birth to Gene and their twin at the beginning of Species. I guess, to sort of like, because we are doing a cinematic universe, that movie would probably end with like, or, the audience learning that the people behind this expedition, why it was secret, who was behind it, and that they know about Gene and Syl. They're bad people, and like the I kind of want to call them like, I don't know, like Blackwater, fucking gender essentialists, like Blackwater Genesis, right? Like they're like a militia who was just sort of like their point was to sort of like advance the human race, but not like that, and so it's a little less grounded than everything we've talked about so far. But like the way that it's sort of like built is that like either of these things can go off in their own direction and never intersect with the others, should we choose,
Sure.
not to, because like one of the perks of like the franchise model is that like if you find a formula that works, well, then let people get all they can out of that formula before you sort of like, bring in other stuff, right? And that's sort of like the frustration I have with like, latter day MCU, where like they introduce all these characters and they never do the sequels.
Yeah, we wonder why there's not a lot of hype for Doomsday. Where is Shang-Chi 2? Why didn't it happen?
Yeah.
That movie was cool. It wasn't like
Yeah.
a masterpiece, but it was fun. Anyway, let's just bring back Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. It's fine. But yeah, I mean, and here at the Pod Universe, we're very much into the idea of building out franchises with things with different tones and then letting those carry forward and cross-pollinate where it's convenient, where it's fun, and letting them do their own thing when it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I like, building a cinematic universe, you've got to have sort of multiple franchises going and then having them collide, right? So it seems like we've kind of got our franchise about Gene and their sibling. We've got our franchise picking up with this new Syl. And, because that's kind of our species legacy.
Yeah, exactly.
Franchise.
And you could see that we could be dropping her into different scenarios or other embryos, right? Into different scenarios. They could be kind of our slasher movie arm of this franchise.
I was going to say we could bring back Michael Madsen. I did not realize he died.
Oh yeah,
last
he died
year.
recently.
Yeah, very recently.
Yeah, because I was going to say, you could bring back legacy characters, but maybe Marg Hergenberger.
Forrest
is still
Whitaker loves to like do voices and stuff. So if you bring it back and you say, all right, you can bring this character back. We're going to put a boatload of money in front of you and you can just like, let him go big. He'll have fun.
But then I think we could also have a franchise exploring the planet that this signal came from, right? Because that's something we don't really.
And it should be fucking animated.
Like have this like deep space thing of the planet where this thing originated from. Eventually, maybe the humans send someone there,
right? But you could Predator it, right? Like you could do something like Predator Badlands, where we do a story where like all the characters are this kind of alien. Or you can, project into the future, like you're saying, like we're encountering them. You could see if you want to go both Predator mode and Star Trek mode at the same time, you can drop one of these aliens that you've just kind of outlined how they work and their relation to gender or whatever on a planet with a completely different gender structure than we have, and use that to explore wilder ideas, commenting back on what we have here, but not the same movie again, but like they do the Thor Ragnarok of it.
So that's the tricky part here, is differentiating this from a franchise versus a cinematic universe, which is like if we want to really dive into the gender dynamics with the Jean story, probably not every franchise should focus on that, because across all of your 30 movies, you're going to start repeating yourself a little bit probably. Then in our crossover movie, I assume, our first sort of Avengers, we have Syl meet Jean, all the species siblings come together, and maybe even somehow travel to that planet, or
maybe in
like
the second crossover, right? We do one here on Earth, and then they all have their next adventure. And in the second one, the thing is, all right, now they got to go home and resolve some problem there.
So the interesting thing about this is that like the way that I would carry it forward is that like these characters are interested in reproducing, and they're still going to do that. You know what I mean? So like we're going to have a whole other generation of characters that are kind of like our New Mutants,
Yeah, we're
like,
going to begat and begat and begat. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're kind of going to be like lost in this sort of world that will probably, in order to escalate the stakes and like build a movie around them, become aware of them and like fucking hate it, and so like, the crossover kind of becomes about like their survival and what's in store for them, and is that here or is that out there?
There's interesting. Well, you could do a story about like assimilation to an extent, right? Or like what it is that like you're from. Originally, you carry over like some ideas and some cultural stuff from some place that you've never been, and then you grow up in another place that may be supportive or may be hostile to whatever it is that you've brought with you.
And, the part of the whole thing in Species that because they reproduce so quickly and age so quickly, the whole thing is if they reproduce, who knows how long it would be before they take over the world. And so we could introduce a franchise where we discover a planet that has fully been propagated, and that's Planet of the Species. And that we have a whole side franchise about like basically an entire world taken over by children.
That one's called Kingdom.
Kingdom of the Species?
No, we have Species, Domain,
and
Kingdom. Yeah,
there we go. So I think we can just go down the whole kind of taxonomy list and just do it.
Yeah,
kind of work our way backwards.
We have a
titles.
different. Every one of those has its own franchise. I can't wait to make a enormous billion-dollar film franchise called Phylum.
Phylum,
yeah. That's a poster. That's a T-shirt. That's a fucking toy line right there.
Perfect. Did you have any other ideas we didn't get to?
That's basically it. I came with like 3 very distinct film ideas with potential to extend in their own directions and also crossover, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Do you have any ideas for how Syl and Jean and the other sibling might interact if they come into contact? Do we think this is a case where they are all teaming up for survival, or is it the kind of thing where Jean is sort of on the other side of them because of their more sort of empathetic? Are they sort of like on the human side, right?
Yeah. I'm imagining a Professor X Magneto thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at, right? Where it's just sort of like I feel Jean's sibling may not survive the first film.
Okay.
And what do you call it? and then Syl to Jean, should they meet or become aware of each other. Syl to Jean will represent like what Jean was hoping to leave behind when their sibling, perished, and so like they will have like philosophical differences, right? Like again, like I think a Professor X Magneto thing is useful, right? I could see Syl wanting to toy with humanity, but ultimately leave it, and Jean is sort of like, we are becoming more interesting together and wanting to remain a part of this world,
It also could be interesting if Jean's sibling doesn't die in Species, or if we start playing with like a clone or something.
Yeah.
That is a character that, again, was born in this, like, the conservative, community of the two extremes. It could be interesting for them to sort of be in the middle of those two. And like, do I go with my sibling, who I have this like closer blood bond with, or Syl, whose worldview makes more sense to me? Because I have more of this anger and more of this disdain for the human race. And again, being trapped between two extremes and trying to figure out their way to navigate it. That could be a cool tension to play with, where, like species versus species with this other person having to pick a side, basically, Yeah.
And then, within these contexts, you have like these, I don't know, like ideologically kind of like have the philosophical struggle of being like this very like post 2010s Walking Dead, what we got to do to survive.
Yeah.
Against a more true to life, compassionate Station 11. Like we got to move through this together and remind each other of things that like, like art and community and shit like that,
Yeah. And like any good Hollywood movie, at the end, it'll turn out that centrism and compromise is the only way forward. That that both extremes are exactly the same, and you have to be right in the middle, and that's the best way to be.
Hey, anytime Station 11 gets brought up on this show, I get a little extra spring in my step, so I'm very happy.
I gotta watch it.
You should watch Station 11, or some would say you should read the book instead. I would say they're so different, you kind of got to do both.
But I watched the first episode.
Say I like the show better, man.
I do too.
Better.
Previous guests on the show, Daniel Kibblesmith and I, are overdue for an argument about this because we were on totally different opposite sides of it. I adore the Station 11 miniseries, and I think the book is fine.
That's exactly how I put it. The book is fine. The show is transcendent.
But we're talking about, like we're looking at sci-fi in the 90s. The X-Files is the ultimate 90s science fiction in that it is about, well, we're a little bit less afraid of each other right now out in the open. So let's be more afraid of what's under the surface of everything, right? It is what is the threat after the Cold War? It must be here already. We don't know how not to be afraid, right? We have to do that. Then we start getting, like I said, The Walking Dead, and you start getting more of the sort of climate apocalypse anxiety coming in. And man, I would love if the end game of of science fiction was the Station 11 notion of like, after the end of the world, what's going to happen? More world. It's just going to be different. As long as we have each other, man.
And as long as we don't all get killed and impregnated by a species. Well, thank you. This was great. I think the Spiku is going to go places.
And we'll see you with a crossover species : survival of the fittest.
Yes. I think that's good. Yeah. Survival of the fittest is great for the, that's a perfect title for the crossover.
Thank you. Josh's aura is reaching through the screen right now.
Thank you.
Wait, obviously Jean's counterpart should be named Darwin, right?
Yeah, and you know what?
Jean's sibling Darwin.
The HMS Beagle.
And in tribute to X-Men First Class, Darwin should die in a way that we've kind of established Darwin can't die earlier in the movie.
Darwin when they're presenting one way and Darlene when they're presenting the other way. Yeah. But yes, this was great. Josh, tell our audience where to find you. Obviously, I'm so glad you're here repping Aftermath. Obviously, friend of the show, Gita Jackson.
We love worker-owned publications here in the Pod
do.
universe.
Tell our listeners where to find you and your writing and anything else you want to share.
Yeah, I mean, what do you call it? I am just like talking shit on Blue Sky at JM Rivera at what is it like .bluesky
.bsky.social, yeah.
Yeah, it really rolls off the tongue.
That's just the protocol, man.
But yeah, I write for all manner of places. You catch me monthly at Aftermath with my column, The Work. I mean, generally, you can find me writing and sometimes podcasting at The Ringer, Slate, sometimes Vanity Fair, and just whoever has loose enough morals to employ me.
Yeah, I like that you are a very multidisciplinary culture writer. You write about. I always think of TV as being your bread and butter because you absorb so much television that I feel like I would never be able to watch 28 episodes of this and 28 episodes of that. You also do film, and I think you were on podcast recently talking about games. You're all over the place in that sense, and I think that's cool. And I really like your new column. I personally struggle with the notion of media as activism, as I often I get worried that a lot of people think that what they choose to watch or not watch is the complete extent of how they exercise their politics. And you really take it into a deeper level. And I also really like the way you write. I'm a fan, as well.
Thanks so much.
You're a homie as well. I should for journalistic integrity.
Disclose, yeah.
Josh is also my friend. We watched the Super Bowl issue together. I was at your wedding. But I also really like your writing.
I've only hung out with Josh once, and I also love his writing. So,
cool.
I can be an independent voucher here.
Don't just take my word for it. Go check him out. jmrivera.bsky.social.
Well, thanks for being here and making us watch Species. I am glad I watched it.
I was long overdue to watch Species. I'm really glad that I did.
It's it's part of our culture and our history. And it's important that we pass that on. I think it should
We have a biological imperative to pass on Species.
The knowledge of Species. And that's why we have to make it into a cinematic universe.
Well, yeah, folks, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're on Spotify or anywhere you can leave comments, tell us what you think of the species of the spimu.
The spiku?
It's spiku. Thank you. The spiku.
And also leave us your additional title ideas.
Yes.
For further installments.
If you made it this far and you're not subscribed to the show, please subscribe to the show. Throw us a like. Engage with our content. Tell your friends. And if you're here for the first time, thank you for joining us. We have lots of fun guest episodes like this one. We also write entire scripts that we perform. They've got scores. They've got the scripts on screen for you on YouTube. Have a great time exploring the Pod universe.
We have a big one coming up.
Yes, we do our first big crossover of this universe.
Our first big crossover of the Pod universe is called War of the Worlds.
And it will
be
have
out in June.
Nothing in common with the recent War of the Worlds.
It will. Oh, yeah, definitely not the Amazon one.
But some things in common with it's not based on the Wells novel, but it has some things in common with it. We want to give a big thanks to the folks who support us on our Patreon at patreon.com/Dylan and Dalton, where you can start your very own 7-day free trial and get our bonus pod, where we do more improvised guest-style pitches like this based on your feedback. Lovable patrons. We want to thank our executive producers. These are patrons who support us at the $15 a month level and get themselves a shout-out on everything we record. Thank you, Brian Egan, Denim Mudslide, Diana, Jonathan Morgantini, Mar Bentlar, Mark Schmidt, Matt Thackeray, Michael Cox, Michael Mansilis, Mike Lee Whiplash, Tucker, and Weiss Belladonna. And a big thanks to our studio executives. They're the ones who get to nominate the movies that we talk about on the bonus pod with their $25 a month subscriptions to our show. Thank you, studio executives Bill French, Beerus, Brandon Bullock, Brent Dreyer, Dracatella, Jasper Stark, Joe Valiant, Cadel, Moose, Sunmot, Speep, and The Wayfinder. We really appreciate your support. And thank you for your patience as we get this next feature locked down.
Yes.
Thank you, Josh, for being a part of our show today.
Thank you for having me.
And until next time, stay scary but sexy. We did it together. Stay
scary but sexy in the Pod universe.
All right.